A couple of shocking videos came out over the past couple of days. One shows a basketball player for Old Dominion, Imo Essien, collapsing, gripping his chest and writhing in pain. Here we go. Another story of some athlete collapsing on the court or field or otherwise, and there are many. Another video we saw is a young woman for CTV News who had a strange medical issue where she struggles to speak. Her eyes kind of cock out sideways and then she goes, and that one really freaked me out. And I feel bad for this chick because we don't know exactly what's going on. We don't know. Many people have suspicions. I'll say it all the time. You're allowed to think what you want to think. I'm not here to tell you what is true or isn't true. I'm here to tell you that something is going on and there's news about it. But of course, many people are talking about the vaccine. Now, I remain somewhat skeptical across the board in terms of everything, because show me direct evidence and I will take that into account. Otherwise, what we need to do for now is, instead of, in my opinion, asserting anything, is demand inquiry. Right now, what we're hearing is with Damar Hamlin. Damar Hamlin. He's the guy who was the football player who collapsed on the field. And they're saying it's commotio cordis, that a sharp hit to the chest disrupted his blood flow and that caused him to pass out. It's a very real thing. It very much happens. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of really crazy stories. I'm seeing a lot of crazy stories about people claiming that it was like a vaccine injury, or they're trying to assume that may be the case. I don't know that. And I think it's absolutely fair to say, yeah, commotio cordis is a real thing. It does happen. And it's possible this was it. People just don't want to believe it. But I also think it's strange that you can't even ask the question or get the answers when you ask something about why are we seeing so many athletes? Why are we seeing so many videos of people collapsing, getting injured, or otherwise? Why are there so many stories about heart issues in young athletes? Why are we now seeing so many stories about people having died suddenly? I am not making any assertion as to what's causing it. In fact, on Tim Castire on the Uncensored Show, I said, maybe it's COVID. I mean, that's a fair point. And I think, look, the left doesn't even say it's COVID. Like the liberals in the media, they're not even saying it's COVID. They're just coming up with random reasons. And then you have many people on the right or anti-establishment that are saying it's vaccines. Don't look at me. I don't know. But I'll tell you this. If COVID has spike proteins, if COVID causes blood clots, if you think that COVID was manufactured in a lab, could this not be the effects of a leaked bioweapon, whether intentionally or otherwise? All I can really say is I don't know. And I want to show you these stories and get into what people are saying, and then leave it up for you guys to decide whatever it is you want to decide. As always, I always recommend you find a doctor who's actually well-versed on these things and can answer simple questions. If you have a doctor and you don't trust them because they're not answering questions, or they don't know the answers to them, I should say, then just find a better doctor. 3WTKR, Essien to visit cardiologist. Determined path to return. Let me actually show you the video first so you can get it for yourself and think what you want to think.
Right side of your screen.
There you go. I'm going to start over. There he is. This guy right here. He just drops. Boom.
Imo Essien, sophomore guard.
Now he's holding his chest and he's writhing on the ground in pain. People immediately get shocked. Yo, what happened to this dude? Why did he collapse like that? What's going on with people's hearts? Why are there so many stories now of young people having cardiac arrest? I'm not talking about a heart attack, a myocardial infarction, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to pretend like I've always known these terms. To be honest, though, I have watched Dr. House, so I knew what an infarction was. Anyway, I digress. I don't know. But I will tell you this. If you go to Google and you do a limited search, stopping just before the end of 2019, for the phrase died suddenly, you will find some stories, but not that many. If you search after 2020, quote, died suddenly, you see an insane amount of stories, like several every day. Now that weirds me out. Certainly, people are going to have questions about why that may be the case. In reference to, in the circumstance of Essien, it is reported Old Dominion sophomore point guard Imo Essien will visit with a cardiologist on Monday to undergo examination and help determine his next steps in a path to return. He went down with little more than 13 minutes in play in the first half of Saturday's 81-75 win over Georgia Southern with an undisclosed medical situation. Jones says the sophomore had trouble catching his breath. He was examined by medical staff, which was able to help him return to breathing normally and was able to return to the bench for a remainder of the game. Essien traveled back to Norfolk with the team on Saturday night. Jones told News 3 his vital signs were normal and he never lost consciousness. The point guard underwent a COVID test following the incident, which came back negative. Here's what I want to say. Do you think something strange is afoot? I wouldn't be surprised. There are too many of these stories. I also want to say, don't fall into the trap of highlighting what very well may be a panic attack. And I know a lot of people are rolling their eyes. No, but I mean it. Let's say there's 10 stories of someone collapsing on the field. What you want to watch out for is, did you take the one story or the two stories or the three stories that were like normal occurrences and create an opening to dismiss? If this dude, he collapsed, right? He couldn't catch his breath. He was having breathing trouble. It wasn't seemingly a heart issue, despite they're saying he's going to a cardiologist. Maybe it was, maybe what? Maybe they're lying. I don't know. But let's say it turns out this dude's got like some kind of muscle issue. I don't want to say multiple sclerosis or something like that. That's causing him to have trouble breathing. Something totally unrelated to anything relative to any kind of medical issue in terms of a pandemic. Maybe that's it. I don't know. And then you come out and you're like, aha, see. And then they come out the next day and they go, turns out he swallowed a nail, or he inhaled Kool-Aid or whiskey or something and was having trouble breathing. You don't know. That's why my stance on all of this stuff is always to just say, let me highlight this very strange and serious occurrence. Let's have an inquiry into the person's health and history. And then we can talk about, is this a pattern of behavior? I get it. A lot of people are doing just that. Great. I don't like coming out and asserting something may be true unless we can prove it, because then you are easily dismissed and they shut down the whole story. I want to play this one for you. This story terrified me, to be completely honest. This poor young woman. Let me play this clip for you, and I'm going to listen to it.
If it doesn't, the case can be referred to the International Court
It's pretty quiet.
of Justice.
All right, so Jessica, how do families of the victims feel about this progress that has come just a week before the third anniversary?
Well, people we spoke with say they were happy that something is being done, but this is something that they've been asking for since day one. So for them, this is about 1,000 days too late. Now, Nariman, looking at after the day, families are pushing the feds to. Sorry, Nariman, I'm not feeling very well right now, and I'm about to.
Okay, well, come back to me right now, and we'll make sure that, Jessica, you are doing okay. Thank you.
Oh man, look at that last bit right there. For those that are just listening, I'll describe it to you because wow, she just starts like her eyes kind of just go off into space, and she just starts stumbling around.
Come back to me right now, and we'll make sure that, Jessica, you are doing okay.
That right there, like, yo, that look, she just loses it. She's just out. She's in outer space.
Okay, thank you.
And her breathing becomes labored, and she's stumbling. And then listen to this.
We will make sure that Jessica is okay. And we will give you guys an update a little bit later to make sure that she is doing all right. She is not alone. She is with photog operators.
Even CTV News knew when they were saying it that something serious has just happened to this woman. Now what just happened to this woman? We don't know. I'm not a doctor, man, so I don't know. Was it a stroke? Was it a seizure? Call it whatever you want. We're all sitting here without our medical degrees trying to figure this out. I don't mean that disrespectfully to me or to anybody else. I mean, quite literally, we don't know. I don't know. But a lot of people have pointed out that she had previously posted about being triple boosted. And of course, this is leading people to believe the vaccine is causing some kind of issue. I don't know. Should we look into it? At this point, yes. I think we should be looking into anything. Like if you're getting stories like this and the public has concerns, ask yourself why it is that so many people are leaning in this direction as to, hey, why do we think this may be the cause? The problem is the media ignores it or calls you a conspiracy theorist and just says it's commotio cordis when a man collapses on the field. Here's the issue. It's not that a single person collapsed on the field. It's that we have a list of hundreds. One thing I will tell you, as I've often stated on many of these shows talking about the vaccine, we've given out triple doses and, hundreds of millions. hundreds of millions around the world. I think, I think we're in the hundreds of millions of doses. In the United States, I think it's like 100 and something million because people got multiple doses. If there are side effects, and everything does, you will see this. So here's what I want to be careful of. Are we looking at a scaling effect problem where you give it 100 million doses of a medicine, get 300 stories of people collapsing on the field, and then think you have a widespread problem? Now, it's bad that anybody would be negatively impacted by a drug being administered, but side effects exist. And we know side effects exist for like basically every medication. So my point is, it's entirely possible there are legitimate side effects of the vaccine or lingering effects of COVID. The question is, why can't we actually figure this one out, have a medical assessment on it? Now, we're starting to get more and more statements coming out from people like Brett Weinstein. And did I do it wrong? Weinstein? I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. I mix them up. And there was recently a study that said that, and it's one study, that for people under 29, there is a greater risk of detriment than benefit from, I think it was Pfizer. I think it might have been all of the mRNA vaccines. I'm not entirely sure. Again, I always say, talk to a doctor. And like one you actually trust. I'm not trying to tell you what to believe or what not to believe. I want to make sure you know about these stories and the context around them. And with this is what the naysayers are highlighting. I want you to listen to this video. This is from CBS2. This is from 10 years ago. Let me play this one for you, and we'll talk about it.
CBS 2's Serene Branson is live at the Staples Center with highlights and backstage coverage we're seeing for the very first time. Serene.
Listen to this.
Well, a very, very heavy debatation tonight. We had a very Darrison, but let's go to Terry's and look for the bit. They have the pit.
Whoa, what?
Had a very heavy debatation tonight. We had a very Darrison, but let's go to Terry's and look for the bit. They have the pit.
She just totally lost the ability to speak live on TV. A lot of people are pointing out that these things happen. That there are many circumstances where we've seen where people on air have issues, have episodes. You've got probably tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of hours in the last decade alone with all of the different news broadcasters everywhere that are doing this kind of thing. And that's probably an understatement. Sooner or later, someone's going to have some kind of issue. As to this young woman who spaced out and started shaking and was going like, it's weird that we're seeing so many stories of young people having medical issues like this. And this is why people are saying something is wrong here. Here's where I stop. I say, you're all right. The fact that we're seeing so many stories about something strange happening and medical issues affecting athletes and young people dying suddenly has me alarmed. And I think we need to have a commission in Congress to start analyzing the data, to start talking about it, to start interviewing people. Hard inquiry. I think we got to get Fauci to sit before a committee and testify once again. I think they need to subpoena him. I think they need to issue warrants, like search warrants, go through records. But I don't know exactly what's causing it. And I do get bugged, to be completely honest, about people asserting definitively that it is the vaccine. Because I'm like, choose your conspiracy theory, right? Dr. Fauci funds EcoHealth Alliance, does gain-of-function research effectively making extremely dangerous pathogens, bioweapons or otherwise. They get leaked from the lab, whether intentionally or not. That causes people to die, drop dead. It's causing young people to have cardiac arrest and all that stuff. Right? Is that and then the reason the government and Trump are trying to get a vaccine out is because they're like, oh no, we leaked a bioweapon. Is it that conspiracy? For some reason, that's an nobody wants to believe that one. But I'm like, I can't tell you how many people came to me and said, I think COVID was a bioweapon that was leaked from a lab. And I'm like, okay, then why does it have to be the vaccine was the bad thing? Maybe that was the bad thing. And then some people are like, but then they rushed through the vaccine and put it out there. And I'm like, okay, well, that's Trump's fault. Look, I don't know. I'm not going to claim to know. I'm just going to claim to say we're seeing a lot of stories about this. We're not seeing, in my opinion, a proper assessment of the issue. I think a lot of people are looking at the facts and they're going to draw those conclusions because they're not being treated fairly, at least in my opinion. Notably that they gave immunity to these pharmaceutical companies over potential negative health impacts of the vaccine. That right there is going to make a lot of people come out and be like, okay, that's you. It's your fault. Let's read about commotio cordis, right? Damar Hamlin collapses on the field. Another story of someone collapsing. This dude almost died. Immediately, they said it's commotio cordis when there is a strike to the chest by anything, results in death. This is a crazy story. The survival rate, if you get a defibrillator and CPR, as high as 58%. That's actually really scary. They're basically saying that the death rate is 42%. Mostly it impacts kids 15 and younger, mostly with baseball. The baseball hits right above their chest and disrupts their blood flow, and then they go down. It happens. It happens, I think, what do they say, 10 to 20 cases annually. So I'm not surprised if we see a 24-year-old dude trying to tackle somebody, take a hard hit to the chest, stand up, and then pass out. It may just be commotio cordis. This is a tough position, man. I don't want to highlight a story that may have a simple explanation and then assert, I believe something is true, therefore. I don't know. But there was something we brought up on Timcast IRL. It's this table showing hundreds of athletes who have collapsed with heart issues. And that is way more than we've ever seen. And it's escalating. We started noticing soccer players collapsing, heart attacks, cardiac arrest, etc. People said, yeah, it's more than normal, but it does happen a bit. Like in the past few years, like even before COVID, it's like 10 people would collapse on the field. These stories aren't extremely, it's not like it never happens. But now we have, within the past year, 304 in one listing, and every day there are more stories about it. Shouldn't we have some kind of commission through Congress to figure out what's causing this, to bring in doctors and pharmaceutical companies to subpoena documents and get answers, to do the research to figure out why and what's causing it? You know what's worrying to me? You've got a lot of people. Let's say the first conspiracy is true. Fauci was providing funding. Well, Donald Trump, I believe, is the one who lifted the ban on gain of function research. But I don't know. Maybe he didn't know about it. Donald Trump's the one who pushed through the vaccine. Is it his fault? Some people have speculated what's going to happen is into the 2024 cycle, Trump's going to be the nominee. And then everyone's going to finally come out and start, like the mainstream media will start blaming the vaccine and say, Trump did this to you. Trump rushed this through. We all knew it. Then, of course, you have the mandates. But what if it's something else? I don't know. That's all I can say, man, is I don't know. But let me show you some stuff. Died Suddenly is a documentary I'm sure you've seen, and they talk about these weird blood clots. I'd like some answers as to what those blood clots are all about. I don't know what causes them. The documentary itself asserts the vaccine. I disagree with their assessment. I think it's look, there's the phrase out of sight, out of mind, and then there's the inversion to that. You see what to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When you buy a car, all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. I got a Tesla. Now I can see everybody driving a Tesla because it used to be that I didn't think about it. So the issue with this is what's causing the clots? Many people think it's vaccination. My response is, okay, but what if it's just COVID? We know COVID causes clots. The response from many people, this didn't start appearing until after vaccination, and it didn't appear during COVID. My response to that is, it could be a delayed secondary reaction to COVID. It could be the spike protein in general. Maybe it's both. I don't know. What I can say is that I think it's strange, considering the timing, that we're seeing a massive uptick in people dying suddenly, injuries on the field, and that is enough for me to say, we need an inquiry. We need a medical assessment, and we don't need the mainstream media on this one. Here's a story about this is a 37-year-old woman, died suddenly. They also reference this story. This week, this is from Massachusetts State Police. 3 active duty law enforcement officers passed away suddenly within the past 7 days. 12 state police dishonorably discharged for failing to get the vaccine. Cardiac arrest can happen to children, what parents of kids in sports should know. I mean, it just feels like it's a weird thing. You've got this young woman, I already showed you, having that strange episode on TV. I don't have the answers, man. I don't. I wish I could tell you I knew for sure. I don't. Former PSG footballer and Olympic champion Modeste Mbami dies aged 40 after heart attack. And I'll tell you this, too. Here's what makes it challenging. 47-year-old Mad Dog surfer, he dies while surfing. They said that what happened was he had a, what did they say? He was in cardiorespiratory arrest. He's 47. He's a surfer, so he appears to be fit. Could this have just been a heart attack? I mean, look, man, there are a lot of stories popping up where it's like Adam Rich, star of 8 Enough, dies at 54. Oh, he's 54 years old. Sometimes 54-year-olds have heart attacks and they die. That's the challenge. The thing that is interesting to me is this. MMA Victoria Lee dies suddenly at 18. Why are we seeing so many young people die? Let's get the answers to that. That's all I can say, man. I don't know. Find a doctor that's savvy, up to date, has read all of the modern studies and literature, and ask them. Say, hey, I just saw a study about masks. I just saw a study. Do the research and ask them. If they don't have an answer, say, how can I trust your assessment if you don't have the answer to these questions? Find a doctor who has the answers and is going to treat you right, because nobody wants to go to a doctor who's going to not understand anything about science or medicine. Until then, I will not be surprised that as time goes on, more and more people are blaming the vaccines because it feels like the establishment is ignoring everything. It feels like it's all being dismissed. Well, if you do that, people are going to come up with their own answers. So maybe it's all on purpose, huh? Maybe they want you to blame Trump. Maybe they want you to live in fear. Maybe. But do right by you. Get your exercise, get your vitamin D, eat healthy, talk to an actual nutritionist and doctor about the best things you can do. I cut out sugars for the most part, down to like 50 carbs per day. And on the weekends, have a little cheat day or whatever. So I'm not trying to be this like hardcore, only eat meat carnivore diet guy, but I lost weight. I got better. My blood pressure went down. I'm feeling a lot better. I think just take care of yourself. That's the best I can say. I can't speak for anybody medically. What I can tell you is this. When I got COVID, I talked to a doctor and they said, have a seat. Good luck. I was getting really sick. Talked to Joe Rogan. He was like, you got to just find a private doctor and talk to him about your symptoms and they'll get you something. And then I did. Basically during this circumstance, I think it was a little bit before, I had a doctor say I wasn't a candidate for the vaccine just because they were like, well, you're, what was I, like 35 at the time or something? I can't remember. I think it was 36. And they're like, your vitals seem to be fine. You're young. You're not a risk factor. We're not really worried about you. Maybe you should wait for someone else to get it. There are people who need it more than you do. And I said, okay, that was it. I don't know what else to say, man. That was the advice I got. And, man, I just don't know. I wish I could come out and tell you definitively I knew what was going on. There's a lot of people who do. There's a lot of doctors who do. There's a lot of doctors who don't. I saw a video of a bunch of pediatricians saying, get your kids the vaccine. And then I see videos of other doctors like, Pierre Corey and Peter McCullough being like, hey, man, about this. And Brett Weinstein, they're saying something totally different. So I defer to the experts, man. We'll see where this goes. All I can say is I want you to know these things are happening. And I want you to be reasonable, and I want you to be safe. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.